Cue the music. Jonathan Fibonojji from beautiful Durango, Colorado. How many times do I got to tell you that beautiful Durango, Colorado is beautiful? I don't care if you're looking at it in black and white, color. Sometimes you got to see things in black and white to really see how beautiful it is. And so, of course, anybody who follows this channel knows that I love black and white photography. And I didn't know I was going to be all protesty, Munich-y, men's rights activist-y, and holy shit, sometimes you just got to tell your story. There's a quote that I believe in. In fact, it's an important quote. So here you go. John Fibonojji, quote of the day. Put it on your Facebook. Put it on your Twitter. Honor beautiful Martin Luther King Jr., where he says, our lives cease to matter when we stay silent about important things. Of course, there's all kinds of quotes out there. I have this joke that Maya Angelou quote will solve 80% of our problems. Well, here's another one. It says, when we are silent about things that matter, our lives cease to matter. Or when we're silent about things that matter, the day that we become silent about things that matter. Of course, Martin Luther King is just kind of helping his people. So men's rights, and what is a man's rights activist? The joke is, and I've said all kinds of jokes about homelessness, but the joke is women don't go homeless, they go in Tinder, and then how men's rights and how ultimately we need to have an intelligent discussion about homelessness. And of course, beautiful Durango, Colorado, leads the pack, not just in the fact that they have a beautiful place called Manna, which feeds homeless people. So, and this model, while incomplete, needs to get attention. I mean, there are some angels that work there. I mean, they are feeding homeless people and homeless families, and most of them are men. Of course, the statistics are true that homelessness is really a man's thing. And so when we talk about men's rights and men's rights activism, we don't really like that. We don't like that conversation because gender rights are usually synonymous with feminism. When feminism has kind of owned that space. Well, remember, federally protected statuses include gender, and gender includes men. And so I am here, Jonathan Fibonojji, going to talk about what is a man's rights activist, and what does it look like, and how can my journey of beautiful Durango, Colorado, how can my journey tell the story of an epidemic, a silent epidemic, because it's men, it's about men. It's about men going homeless and who goes homeless. And in fact, if you want to really kind of see how broad the MRA movement is, just Google highest statistics rates and notice that men, Caucasian white men, middle-class men lead the journey, or lead, not the journey, but lead the pack for homelessness and suicide. And who's having that conversation? John Fibonojji, of course, that's the book I was named after. So, I love Durango, and it's not hard to watch my videos to see how much I do love this beautiful town. But yet, this town also has rampant homelessness, so much that it almost is part of every Durango Herald. And the Durango Herald is sort of stuck in 1970s. They've already gone to like 4 editions. They used to be a weekly, now they're down to 4, and it's because print advertising's dying and they're not adjusting, so they're going to fewer editions, and eventually it's going to become 2 editions. Then eventually it's the Durango Herald, the beautiful Durango Herald, is going to become like the Pagosa Sun, where it's basically just almost, silly. Well, I still believe in journalism, and I'm going to use my First Amendment and my Dorothea Lange inspiration. In fact, how can you talk about feminism and not talk about Dorothea Lange, and how Dorothea Lange really was the Dorothea Lange was a brilliant photographer, and she took pictures of the Great Depression, and she zeroed in on the journey of the female, of the mom. And so much of what we know as feminism, or know about feminism, really is coming from the impetus of Dorothea Lange's photography and just the brilliance of her photography. So what can a photographer do? What can Jonathan Fibonojji do about homelessness? And, this is a picture of homelessness. Remember, this is where Ben Carson, remember that black brilliant man? Wouldn't we love to have Ben Carson be our president? But nope, they didn't listen to me either. In fact, when I first moved to Durango 2 years ago, Ben Carson had just spoken. He was one of the first presidents to really speak about the EPA and the fuckery that's going on with the EPA. And Ben Carson did what really any man of integrity would do, is he came to Durango and spoke in this beautiful space. And of course, the rest is history. Well, here I am. I'm going to kind of have my own Ben Carson moment. I'm going to talk about homelessness in Durango, and specifically how beautiful towns are kind of subject to homelessness. Like Los Angeles is the capital of homelessness. Of course, men are going homeless. Women just go on Tinder in most cases. Well, back to my story. Now, I've been homeless for 2 years. There's 50 shades of homelessness. I've been really homeless since I lost my business due to Dodd-Frank. And then for a year, I kind of just lived off savings, and I applied for work, but I really pursued my passion for day trading and economics. I'm kind of a finance guy, so day trading is basically pure economics. Of course, we can tell that story later. So I lived off savings and, of course, hope, and ran a company for 10 years. And frankly, I was kind of happy to not have the burden of a 10-year-old company on my back. Then you throw in kind of a civil case that went on forever. In fact, it's still going on, and I haven't seen my children. And then boom, here you go, Jonathan Fibonojji meets some angels at Manna. And there are some angels. Again, what's happening at Manna needs to be replicated. Every city needs to have community meals, and just the value of community meals in and of itself, divorced from the homeless narrative. There's some beauty in community meals where you're not having to pay and you're just literally embracing community. Well, there are some bad apples, and I got into a fight. Stupid Kathy, she's a bitch. I told Kathy today, I said, Kathy, have you ever been homeless? Of course, she said no. And I also wanted to say, Kathy, why is a female that's never gone homeless leading and running the Manna Soup Kitchen in Durango when you have no empathy of that? I think I even used the word episiotomy. I said, women understand episiotomies. Men will never understand it because, well, just Google episiotomy. So why is it that soup kitchens are run by females who've never been homeless? And I told her, I said, I'll give you $400 if you go homeless for 2 weeks. Of course, she thought I was crazy. Then I wanted to say, well, that's a federally protected status. So here you go, Sol 80. This is my homeless journey. Beautiful Durango, Colorado. It's beautiful. Just riding my bike, my Red Ritchie. My truck got repoed, which is kind of a funny story, because if you ever really want to know what's important, lose your truck, which used to be my vehicle. Of course, I asked for an incident report, and we'll talk about how police really don't file even incident reports. And so just think of the legal ramifications of having an entire police force not providing services to homeless men. Are we willing to have that conversation? Well, here you go. I know we want to have this conversation about beautiful puppies. In fact, I would like to know what Durango spends on animal care, and what's that called? Where you just, what's the Durango, Colorado budget for, animal control? Well, what's their budget for homeless people? Here's a Vietnam veteran. I don't know if it's Vietnam. I think he was. He's told me about some of his war stories. His name is Thomas Blackfeather, and I was advocating for him because he's not. Well, let's go back in time. Let me tell you the story of Thomas Blackfeather and how I was advocating for a Vietnam vet. He's just not acclimating to homelessness. I met him in jail because I was there on parking tickets. Remember, homeless people go to jail. Rich people just pay the fine. Well, I didn't have the money for a fine, so that's where I met Thomas Blackfeather, and boom. I have a jailhouse buddy. Little did I realize that he and I would both be eating wonderfully prepared meals at Manna Soup Kitchen. And of course, he's not really adjusting to homelessness. I'm at Sol 80, which means I've been homeless for about 2 years, but living homeless for about a year. And most of the time when people think of beautiful Colorado, they think of bears, and I've seen 2. Or they think about some party time, and you know what? Durango has it. Durango has everything, even Bigfoot. I even photographed Bigfoot. Of course, that's its own meaningful message to me. Some scripture that I keep on me, and how this journey has been as much about my own faith, much about homelessness, and much about empathy and compassion, and really seeing where this country is moving, and how an entire group of people, class of people, are silently just going away. This is Thomas Blackfeather. It's not his last name, but I like to call him that. I call him Ranting Cantaloupe. You know, I emailed a local Veterans Administration person, and I said, hey, you need to know this guy's story. You know, this veteran is homeless. He needs housing. He needs tents. He needs food. Manna's feeding him, but he doesn't have anything other than that. He doesn't even have access to his medication. Of course, I didn't think I'd get a response, but then I finally did get a response. Today, Richard emailed me, and in his email that I sent Richard on behalf of Thomas Blackfeather, Pawnee, as I said, you need to help this veteran. This soldier needs your help. And Richard's the La Plata guy here in Durango. His email was very succinct and very short. He said, thank you for your concern about a veteran. You know, I don't know what failure to render aid, I don't know what that Colorado penal code is, but, you know, remember, statistically, men don't live long in homelessness. They succumb to it. Who's having that conversation? And remember, some of the people that we as a city who we've hired are not protecting the people we've hired to protect. Like if Richard's going to reply to me like that, like I'm sending him some sort of congratulatory email, is that not failure to render aid? And are we not building a case for a federally protected petition citing really all the things that you would see at a man's soup kitchen? You know, disability. Are we really having that conversation and fighting this on a federal level or on a state level? Who's having the conversation about homelessness in an intelligent way? Except for Jonathan Fibonojji. Anyway, so I went to the Manna Soup Kitchen and I kind of bitched. I said, you know, we really need to help these people. And then I told Kathy, who's a cunt, I said, Kathy, I said, have you ever been homeless? Because she doesn't understand a lot of what I'm, you know, all my passion and my advocacy for, well, I guess there's 100 people there that eat there every day with me. Brothers and sisters, I like to call them, but I usually just try to eat my food alone and get out and pretend I'm not homeless. And then I look for work in a city that really doesn't have a middle class. Today I photographed this, or yesterday, and I'm like, you know what, I'd live in that. I would live in that. And I thought, you know, what if we just simply took incomes like Kathy's income from Manna, and we made it a volunteer situation. We used 501c3 money. What if we really started talking about community involvement on homelessness, and really start looking at 501c3s and how many churches are sidestepping taxation, and yet they're not even feeding the homeless, and we have to go to the beautiful Manna. I told Jason, one of the angels there, I said, Jason, you know, he was giving me kind of lip service for advocating for a veteran. I said, I just don't want this nigga to die. Then he gave me some lip service about the system. I said, well, the system should also make churches that are getting 501c3 income deductions, make them feed the homeless, shelter. I mean, that's literally the mission of Jesus. I mean, there's literally the story of the Good Samaritan. I mean, I think that's still in the Bible. I think feeding 5,000. I mean, Jesus literally said, feed my sheep. Holy shit. Who's advocating for the black feathers, for the ravens, for the Fibonojjis? Durango's a beautiful town, but it's in denial about homelessness. And another conversation that a lot of these beautiful Colorado towns are not having a conversation with or willing to have a conversation about is female suicides. And between suicide and homelessness, are we really united? Or maybe you're just going to watch this video and make your own ad hominem attacks and say, you know, he rants, he rambles. Well, they said the same thing about Jesus the Christ. And this journey was given to me, so I'm going to hopefully be faithful to it and tell the story about Durango homelessness, or really talk about homelessness is just a fancy word for poverty. Think about that for a moment, and I'll talk about that in another video. Homelessness is really just another word for poverty. And we need to start looking at legislations like Dodd-Frank and Obamacare, and we need to really look at, like, these senators are just fucking signing these laws. They're not even reading the shit. And how Dodd-Frank annihilated my old company, my old business. And 41 years old, you having to find not just new work, but a new line of work. And sometimes you have to go there to understand the implications of behemoth bills like TARP bailouts and Obamacare. And oh, holy shit, this guy must be crazy, Jonathan Fibonojji. And I would say, well, yes, you can call me crazy. You can call me Fibonojji. You can email me americano417@gmail.com, just like the coffee, americano417@gmail.com. You can email me. You can drop me some PayPal. You can say, hey, I like your content. You're making me think about gender stuff, really relative to men and how, in fact, just Google some of that shit. You're making me think, Fibonojji. There's $54 for the holla. Or maybe you don't want to do that at all. Well, let me tell you a joke. There's two kinds of evil. Evil. There's ignorance and there's apathy. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, I don't know, and I don't care about no homelessness and Dodd-Frank TARP bailout, text 2503, nigga holla. But I'll say, Ernest Hemingway, in his brilliance, said it best. He goes, for whom the bell tolls. For whom the bell tolls. And how that's a conversation we need to have. And that's what I would say if I were standing in Ben Carson's house. Americano417@gmail.com. John Fibonojji. Beautiful Durango. Saw 80, nigga hollers.